Tarun Jain, rapid fire intro in 1 to 2 sentences. Who are you?
All right. So, my name is Tarun. I am a PhD dropout engineer working as a growth marketer these days. I'm also a scuba diving instructor and a wannabe marine biologist and just living my life.
And how do you make money online?
So right now I work as growth lead for a fintech startup called Frizz, which is a Singapore-based company. So as a digital marketer is how I make my money.
And what's your favorite thing about digital nomading?
It's just the possibilities, I would say, that this kind of lifestyle provides. And with this lifestyle, almost everything is possible, I would say.
And where are you now, and what are your 2 to 3 favorite cities in the world?
So I am in Phuket, Thailand right now. And it is amongst my top 2 or 3 cities in the world, I would say, for sure. In India, Goa, Kodaikanal, and I would say beer billing. So if you're into mountains, beer billing and Goa. If you're into beaches and partying, it's Goa. And in Thailand, it's Phuket, Koh Phangan. I think those are the top 3.
And what's your best concise advice for aspiring digital nomads?
I would say trust your skills and give it some time. That's the advice.
And what small change has made a big difference in your life?
The day I decided to try something very new and daring, which was to try scuba diving with sharks. That was my first ever dive 8 years ago, and just living for ocean now.
Amazing. And what's your favorite book?
I'm not a big book reader, but I love fiction, so Harry Potter.
That's a good choice. And if you had 20 seconds to live, what message would you share with the world?
Live your life and see you on the other side.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you being here and doing this. I'd love to, as we slow down and get out of the rapid fire section, I'd love to start just by hearing your digital nomad journey and your story for anyone who isn't familiar with you. When did you start? Where have you been? Paint us the broad picture of your journey.
So of course, I was also on the traditional route of, going to college, graduating from college. So that was in 2014 when I graduated as an engineer. I was in India. I had an offer from a very big e-commerce company like the Amazon of India, which is Flipkart. So I had a pretty good offer in my hand. I also had a PhD offer from New Zealand, University of Auckland. Things were looking good. Things were looking fine. And so I went for the job, quit the job in 4 months, then went for PhD. And then I was in New Zealand, started diving, and was in general just, having a pretty normal traditional life of an academic and, getting into academics. But that's when I, heard, and that's when a lot of startups were booming, at least in my peer group. A bunch of my friends were running an IoT company. So I decided to quit my PhD, drop out, and actually join them in their startup. And that's where I would say I build most of my skill set and experience in digital marketing and, got some equity, made a little bit of money. Then I was in a place there where I could, follow my passion, and I felt very deeply about, not living just in a city and doing a 9-to-5 job, and rather, start working remotely. So I started working remotely almost 5 years ago, and first few gigs did not pay a lot. And yes, there were some rough patches, and, where I was, it was not stable. And I did go back to the city life for 2 months in the last 5 years, just because I didn't have any job, and all the jobs were in the city in an office. But I just went there, got a job, and then in 1 month I was able to convince my current company to make me remote. For the last 3 years, it's been very simpler and much more stable for me. I have had last 2 gigs have been full time. So, and my last company I worked for almost 2 years. This is the new company I joined 3 months ago, and both are pretty stable jobs. So now there's a lot more stability in my income. It allows me to follow, more of my passion and do what I love.
And so it seems like from the outside, it seems like you started doing, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but you started doing most of your travels within India. You were in Goa and in other places, and now you're branching out internationally. What sparked that interest in going further abroad?
So, I never really had the travel bug. inside me. So I'm not one of those like who loves to travel. For me, it's always driven by an idea or something I want to do. So even within India, I used to travel was because I wanted to learn paragliding. So I just went into the mountains and lived there for a few months till I became a paraglider. I went and started living in Goa because that's where most of the diving was happening, and I just wanted to dive and become a diving instructor. So while working a job, getting money, I could still follow something that I wanted to really do and achieve, and that's what prompts me to travel. So yeah, after I had lived in Goa for almost 3 years, there was not much for me to do there. I had already dived almost everywhere it was possible to do it, and that's when I decided Thailand is amazing for diving. There's also a few communities here and research groups that I could join and actually work on marine biology. I do want to be a marine biologist. That's why I chose Thailand, and I just came here. And my next plan is again to stick, at least for the next 3-4 years, I'm going to stick to marine biology. So I'm going to go to probably Indonesia or Philippines, look for another research group, volunteer research group, and just go there, join them. And on the side, I always have a job. So it works out.
I love how on your journey and in your life, you've blended your online and remote work with enabling you to pursue offline passions. And your travel, as you just described, is very much around your marine biology and diving passion. It's interesting hearing you talk about how travel isn't the motivation for you. This is just enabling you to live a life that you want. And I love how you've blended it. I guess my question here would be, how did you get to this place from the perspective of just to talk to me about finding passions and like sort of chasing different sparks and interests, because I feel like there's a lot of people who aren't sure what they're passionate about and aren't sure what they want to do. How did you get to this point?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so first of all, like passion is a very, it's a very strong term. And that's why people might feel like, I don't know what my passion is, because I think they're overthinking it. It's when I say my passion is diving or I'm passionate about marine biology, the nitty-gritty of it and the everyday aspects of it and how I became a diving instructor, or when I'm actually doing the marine biology work, I don't have to enjoy every bit of it, right? The passion is not supposed to be, there is no such thing where you're enjoying the 100% of it, right? So, but overall, it gives you a sense of purpose and happiness and contentment. So I think the keyword here is, if you feel content doing something, you can just call it your passion and be happy with it. So if you enjoy diving every weekend and it just keeps you happy, then diving is your passion. So for me, it's just that, if going out helping people makes you happy, then that's your passion. So I think you can just decide what really makes you happy, or is there something you really, really want to do and that you have not tried before, and just go for it. And you might enjoy it, and it might be your passion for a few months or a few years or for your lifetime, but only time can tell. So, and passions can change within a month, within a day.
I like it. And so one thing you touched on the work side is when you started, it seems like you're doing more freelance and part-time type gigs, shifted more to full-time, which is part of a global shift because of the pandemic. Talk to me a little bit about your journey there of getting going as a freelancer. And then I'd love to just talk about the global shift that's happening, that's opening up this possibility of remote work to the masses.
So sure. I mean, so when I started, I didn't really first think that, okay, I need a remote job and then I will quit my current gig and start working. So it happened more organically, as in like I just decided to quit my job, go to Goa, and I thought I will figure it out eventually. So it wasn't really, okay, first I need freelancing gigs and then I will have some source of income and then I will start traveling. I just did it, went there. Having a diverse skill set does help. So because I went there and I started becoming a diving instructor, I did quickly get a source of income as a diving instructor itself. It was a very bad paying job compared to whatever I had been doing before. It doesn't pay a lot.
But it was something.
But it's something. So then, you can still live off of it. It can be bartending or it can be waitering or anything, right? But for me, it became diving instructor. Did it very scarcely. And then I was always, looking and always to your network. I think network is very important even for digital nomads, or I think even more for digital nomads, I would say. So having that network of people around you who you have worked with in the past is important. To give you an example, there was one of my colleague in one of the company. I worked with him only for 3 months, but then he went to another company abroad in Finland, and then I got a gig through him. So this kind of networking really helps. So if you're making friends in every company that you work for, a few years down the line, you would have worked for 10 or 15 companies, and you would have that big circle who will always be giving you work or, recommending you for some other thing. Yeah, I went there. I got, some small gigs. I talked to a few of my friends. They, recommended me somewhere, and I started with, of course, small gigs, like 1 month, 3 month gigs. And some were part-time, but for long, required only 3-4 hours, but that went on for 6 months. Yeah, at that time it was like whatever gives me money, I will do it. And then slowly you start building your profile. You start gaining experience, and experience is again important in this field, like any other field there is. So if you have experience and a past record and a good network, then you can actually be on the winning end of it. You can decide who you want to work for. So yeah, then the last few years have been, I don't have to worry about a job anymore. I know any day I can get a job, and there are so many, especially now. I think the marketplace is really opening up for talented people. I mean, there are more jobs than you can think of. When I started, yes, the people did not prefer having a full-time employee as remote. So that was true when I started, and with pandemic that has changed. It's really amazing. It's an amazing time to be a digital nomad, because now you don't have to worry about part-time and contract work. You can be a full-time employee and still work remote.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that is the lowest barrier entry point for the average person. I mean, starting a business is a big leap. Even starting a freelance business, obviously challenging when there's rewards around flexibility and things. But getting a remote job, there's so many companies that are now hiring remote, or that are even only hiring remote people.
Yeah.
So I think especially people who have specific skill sets, engineering, design, marketing. I mean, even sales and other things. I feel like there's a big shift happening, and as we're all seeing, does not seem to be going away. And so it seems like this trend, every time it feels like the offices are going to reopen, at least in the US, it's like some big spike happens and things get pushed back. So now feels like a great time to transition, even if someone isn't planning to travel, but just wants more flexibility to spend time with family or do whatever they're doing. And there's so many different options out there. I want to get your thoughts on loneliness in digital nomading. And this is, I think, the number one challenge that most people in the digital nomad world face, and that frequently causes people to either stop nomading or start spending really long amounts of time in different places. But tell me about your thoughts on loneliness.
I would say it's true. I mean, I think compared to the traditional, working, this being a remote worker or a digital nomad is definitely more lonely. You don't have that, when you go to an office, you have your peers around you. You can talk to them. You go on smoking breaks, coffee breaks, after party, after office parties and all that stuff. So there is a social life in traditional workforce, which you can try to replenish. Like a lot of companies are trying to do it through virtual events, even sitting in front of cameras and drinking with your, but it's not the same.
Remote Zoom happy hour.
Yeah, but it's not the same for sure. Yes, when you are working, it's good and bad as well. You are more productive because you're not wasting your time, chit-chatting, and that's so you can finish your work in less time. But of course, it's much more lonely when you're actually working. But the after working and what happens after that is totally dependent on you, where you decide to live. As a digital nomad, you might want to live with your family, your friends. There are some nice hippie places in Thailand where you have this whole community living together and working So you have working hours and you're then just partying or whatever. So it depends on you. It's definitely more lonely than the traditional, I would say.
Yeah, I found for me, one of the big shifts I've made when I first started my digital nomad journey, I was switching places every 6 to 8 weeks, which is quick.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's very quick.
If you think about building a relationship, hey, you meet someone you really like, you might only have another month or 6 weeks to strengthen that relationship. And then all of a sudden you're gone and you're off to a new place and you're starting from scratch and you're doing that again and again.
Yeah.
And I think that's, from my vantage point, it's a great way to improve yourself and improve and spend a lot of time like kind of alone and in your own thoughts and regrouping. Yeah. Obviously, it isn't a great way to build deep relationships. And so I've really shifted to now where I'm doing like 4 to 6 months in any given place and trying to go a lot deeper and just go slower, which enables more productivity, more relationships. And I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on the meeting people side, because I think along with loneliness, meeting people and the fear of going to a place where you know no one, like I don't know if you knew anyone in Goa, but showing up and being like, okay, how am I going to make friends? Who am I going to hang out with? And I'll share one anecdote on my side, which likely similar to you. I do have a deep passion, which is surfing. And I found that that's a great way to meet people and to spend time with people. Like I meet people in the water, or I meet people on shore, or I meet people somewhere, find out they surf. We go surf together. And then now we're surfing regularly. Yeah. And so the deep passion side I found very helpful. But I'm curious to get your thoughts on the meeting people side of things.
I'm very similar to yours. I mean, most of my friends are diving buddies. So, I mean, even when I went to Goa, they made some really close friends. And most of them I met through diving. And then, of course, friends of friends. And the longer you stay, the bigger your circle becomes. So, whenever you decide to, move to a new place, it gets harder the longer you stay at one place. So because I stayed in Goa for 2.5+ years, that was the longest I've stayed at any place. So, it almost feels like home. And, you have so many people, and there's a whole community and you can depend on them. Which is good, but then again depends from you as a person to person. Like you get bored of it and you want some new challenge in your life, and so then you make a move. And whenever you move to a new place, yes, you have to start from scratch. And having it could be surfing, it could be it's diving for me. So again, when I came here, the research groups, they were my first friend, and then it was the diving centers and the divers, and slowly you meet some more digital nomads like yourself. And again, I have been here for almost a year now, so now I have a community and friends I can depend upon. But again, when I move away from here, it will start again. It's just life.
And so before we go deep on some digital nomad locations, which I'd love to get your thoughts on Goa, because that is a place that I researched and thought about before. I want to talk a little bit about climate change, which is a passion of both of ours, climate change and digital nomading, and thinking about impact and footprint. What are your thoughts on the topic? I mean, it seems like something that you've thought about a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all should at least be, understanding of the fact that we are taking resources from this earth. Like whatever we do, there are resources being used and it is impacting everyone. Yeah, so as a digital nomad, if we are traveling a lot, or I would say a lot more than we used to, just because we are a digital nomad now, then of course it's not great. But even small things like, when we go to a new place, then you set up your own work desk. So maybe you buy a monitor, and again, you start collecting things, to make your life more comfortable. And then you just make a switch, and half of the things you might leave behind, and then you buy it all new again. So all this kind of stuff, I think we should be considerate about, at least. So, we should consider what we buy, how much we are, producing waste when we are moving. And things like that, I think as a community, we should definitely talk about.
I agree. I mean, I've thought about it. I think the speed of travel is a big one. The difference between, switching places and getting on a flight every 3 to 7 days or 2 weeks versus every, 6 months is obviously obviously a massive difference. The food takeaway stuff is a challenging one.
Yeah.
Like you get to a place and if you don't have a great kitchen, you're eating out a lot and there's a lot of waste happening there. I found in some ways, I think for me, I feel like my footprint is probably less than it was pre-nomading. Like in a weird way, I actually think that I fly less now than I did back then. And I also buy a lot less crap. Like I feel like I just buy less things in general. Like in the US, there's Amazon, which makes anything like instantly accessible. When your brain pops in, you want something, you can just grab it. It's something I'm still thinking about and still thinking about how to reduce my footprint and how to deal with that, because obviously it's an important thing in the world that we all need to be thinking about.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it totally makes sense what you said, and it's actually true that when I used to work in a traditional sense, every weekend meant we have to do something. And, traveling used to be for, it's a long holiday, we need to travel. I mean, that was how most of us used to think in a traditional office setting. But now, because I'm already living in a place where people would come for holidays, I don't really need to go anywhere. So long holidays just means a walk for me, or, a short distance for me. Yeah, maybe we travel less, but I do still feel, that I can definitely, save some more stuff and buy less stuff from takeaways or food or even electronics that I can hopefully carry with me wherever I go. But yeah, I do need a screen to work effectively, and screen is the one thing that's hard to carry if you are switching countries or even going long distance.
I mean, I feel like as long as it's getting moved, like as long as if you're throwing it away, obviously that's very wasteful.
Yeah.
But if you're able to sell it or donate it, or like somehow it gets repurposed, that the life cycle carries on. Yeah, when you move out and you start throwing stuff in the trash is when it's like, I can't believe this is not good.
I mean, that's where I think co-working spaces can be helpful. I mean, I'm sure there's more scope as the more communities build up in different places. I'm sure there will be solutions to for us to be able to rent these kind of necessities for short term. I already know these things exist in big cities, but then nobody really wants to go be a digital nomad in a big city, So hopefully places like Thailand, Phuket, and Chiang Mai will come up with such things, make life easier for all of us.
Well, before we shift to talking about locations, is there anything else that you want to add on any of these topics? Anything else to leave listeners with? Any thoughts, advice, lessons, anything you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can say is that, digital nomad is not about traveling. It's more about giving you the freedom to do what you want. That's what this whole thing is about. And that, one part of it is you can travel to a place which allows you to do it. I don't see any downside to working remotely. I mean, you can do whatever you want in office. You can go start working in an office as a digital nomad, and that's what most of the people actually do. Like, they go to a co-working space and then you get the same social vibe as well.
Well said. Well, I want to switch over and deep dive on some locations. I'd love to actually start with at least somewhat of a dive into Goa, India.
Yeah.
Goa is a place that I thought about. I think from the outside, from my research, I got scared away because of the Wi-Fi. But I'd love to get you were there, you said, for 2.5 years. I'd love to get your general thoughts, pros and cons for digital nomads on Goa.
Goa is, again, it's a tourist destination in India. There are those things called peak season, high season and low season. So just like any other tourist destination, there will, during the New Year, December time is when the peak is and the prices go crazy, and a lot more people are there and stuff like that. But overall, if you want to go and live there for at least a couple of months, it's actually really beautiful. I mean, it's amazing. The scenery and everything is good. The food is good. The people is good. Language is not a problem. So especially most of the people there can speak English, and there's a vibrant expat community as well. So there are a lot of expats living in Goa, which is all great. The Wi-Fi, yes, again, depend if you are going to go there and live for a while longer, you can find these hidden spots and local places where you can stay, and then there you can actually get your own Wi-Fi broadband plan of up to 1 Gbps. If you're only looking to go live in a hotel or a traditional Airbnb, then you might have to just pay more and you will get all the amenities. But if you want to live on a cheap budget, everything is possible in Goa, and Wi-Fi is good. I mean, it's just you have to buy it yourself.
Got it.
Yeah.
So the Wi-Fi, because most of what I've read online is that the Wi-Fi can be just like really hit or miss, and sometimes it cuts out. But essentially what you're saying is that you probably just need to like buy your own plan, like reach out to the Airbnb person and say, hey, can we install faster Wi-Fi? I'll pay for it. And I take it from that are power outages a thing there? Like, are power outages or mass Wi-Fi outages, are those issues for people that need like very stable Wi-Fi, or what are your thoughts on that?
Actually, once in every 2 through 3 months, 1 day in every 3 months, I would say. That's like, so one out of 90 days, you can expect a power outage. It's actually true for most of the coastal cities. Even in Phuket here, 1 out of maybe not 90, but 180 days, you can expect a power outage and in anybody's hand. But now the 5G is actually getting stronger. So if you can work around with 30 Mbps, then you don't have to worry about anything any day, right? There are places where you will always find electricity through generators, and there are cafes always open, and 30 Mbps is now possible almost everywhere in Goa. High-speed internet, which is Wi-Fi, more than 100 Mbps, that you will not have it 365 days.
And then cost of living, give us a breakdown from cost of living, apartments, food, other things, and I guess selfishly, if possible, in USD. Or
you can live a very lavish lifestyle if you have been earning in USD. So let me give you, I'll give you the cheap breakdown. Like, if you want to live on a budget, you can not go with Airbnbs and managed apartments, and you can actually go for your own long-term rental. So if you go for that, it's dirt cheap. Where the apartment I had was a 2-bedroom with a hall and a kitchen, and it only used to cost $200 a month. So $200 a month for a 2-bedroom. With all the amenities you need. So I think that's a really decent. And if you want to really lavish near the beach, so again, it depends on the location. It depends a lot on the location you choose. I chose to stay more towards the city because the Wi-Fi and all like supermarket and a mall and all those things are nearby. So if you are living just next to the beach, you want a place, it will be expensive and there will be less amenities.
Got it. And you think more Wi-Fi challenges closer to the beach, further from the city?
It can be, because during monsoon, if the weather is bad and all that stuff, a tree falls down on your line, you can't do anything, right? So there are such challenges. But if you go near the beach, it can go maximum 10x of that. So that's a lot. That's a huge range. If you want just a beachfront property with a swimming pool and a private swimming pool, then you might be paying up to $2,000 a month. But that would be like a really, really good life.
and then food and other things. Yeah, how much does that stuff cost?
In general, India is very cheap if you are cooking your own food. It's, I guess we can talk about some basic stuff like bread costs less than $1. I mean, half $1, I would say, is the cost of 1 pack of bread. The milk also will cost you less than $1 for 1 liter of milk. So if you're cooking, and vegetables and all that stuff, everything is less than half $1 if you're cooking for yourself. If you're cooking yourself, you can make your meal for $1-2. If you're gonna go eat outside, I would say $5 is, again, in a decent restaurant, $5 is enough to get you a good meal. So it's really cheap. And the special thing which is more cheap in Goa compared to anywhere else in India is the booze. So if you like drinking, I think you should go and stay in Goa because there are no taxes. So the alcohol is especially cheap in Goa. Beer costs only, I would say, 30 cents or 40 cents is what it costs for a pint of beer. It's really cheap to drink beer. If you are a smoker and that, you can get that also for cheap in Goa. So drinking is really cheap, getting food is really cheap. And that's why when I was staying there, I didn't really need a lot of money. I was living, I think I had a budget of $300 a month or something. $300 or $350 a month is what I would spend. And I was drinking almost every day.
Got it.
So yeah, it's cheap.
And then how would you describe the weather to someone, and like weather and different sort of seasons to someone who knows nothing?
Before we go to weather, I do want to say one thing, that the transportation is not good. So if you don't know how to drive a motorbike, then I would not suggest you to go and live there for a long time, because the public transport is not good and the taxis and all that stuff is not cheap. So as long as you can drive a motorbike, you are good. If not, then it's not gonna be cheap.
That's a good tip. I appreciate you adding that in there.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, weather is pleasant for most of the year, but yeah, in India we do have 4 seasons, and traditionally I think there are 2 or 3 in most part of the world, but we have 4 seasons. So, but in Goa, it's on the southern coast, so you do not feel the extremes. So there is no extreme cold, there is no extreme summer. So the climate is very temperate for most of the year, but there is a rainy season, or monsoon as we call it. And during that time, it's raining almost every day for like 4 hours straight. It will stop for a couple of hours, then again 4 or 5 hours of rain. There are storms that happen during this season, but I enjoy rain. I love rain. There are more connection issues. There is more power outages during this season. But I love just the smell of rain, I love it.
Got it. In the digital nomad community, would you find other remote workers? What's that scene like?
Yes, you will. So there are, in Goa, there are more hippie communities than the digital nomad communities, I would say.
Okay.
You will find a lot more people who are there for yoga and retreat, or for partying, or for other stuff. There are a lot of those who will also be working remotely as a digital nomad. There are a few co-working spaces which are coming up. So this is more recent. But yeah, there are at least 3 or 4 co-working spaces that I know of that have good operations in Goa now. But I am sure more are coming up, especially since COVID. I'm seeing a huge rush to Goa for Indians themselves. So even all these folks who used to work in Bangalore or Delhi or Mumbai in big tech companies, now they have the opportunity to work remote, so they are all moving to Goa. So co-working spaces and the community is definitely on the rise.
Got it. That makes sense. I mean, one of my general thoughts with the rise of remote work is I feel like people are going to leave cities and head to places with better quality of life and lower prices.
That's true.
And on how's the nightlife there? I imagine it's kind of happening, given that it's a big tourist spot.
I mean, pre-COVID, it was the most happening place in entire India. It is the party city of India. I mean, if you go and look online for the parties in Goa, you will get everything that you want depending on the kind of person you are. There is a place for you. If you're into drugs or just chilling out, relaxing on a beach, there is something happening every night in Goa. I think the nightlife is very vibrant and very good, and there is an entire genre of music that is it's called the Goa trance. So it's a Goa trance EDM kind of music, but it's very endemic to Goa and it's very famous. And
cool.
I think it's amazing, the nightlife.
And then, are there good and bad neighborhoods and areas to live? What are your thoughts there? And then, how do you recommend booking housing?
Yeah, I mean, if it's your first time in India, I would say, of course, there is a cultural difference. So if it's your first time with going into a new culture, I won't suggest going and living very remotely and away from an expat community. Actually, for any new place that you go to, I would suggest to first go there, book a hotel or an Airbnb for a few days or a week, so that you actually can go and check out the neighborhoods and find out the amenities that are important to you. For example, a supermarket and where to fill water, how to get water. I mean, I think that's something which is very important. People don't realize, especially in new places. So where to get water and basic things. And then for me in India, there is an app called OLX, which is like classified local classified. So if you are looking for a long-term rental or even a monthly rental, it's much cheaper than Airbnb or any other place, and there are more options. So that's what the locals would use to rent. So OLX or Facebook groups. I think Facebook Marketplace is great. Anywhere, even in Phuket, if I have to find a long-term rental, I'm looking at Facebook groups, Facebook Marketplace.
Got it. That was a great breakdown. I feel like I've got a pulse. I guess one follow-up clarification question is, you mentioned trying to live in expat areas. What are the main expat areas in Goa?
So yeah, I mean, actually there are some communities. So I'm not sure if it's if there's a bias or anything, but it's generally, we know that there are a lot of Russian communities living in the north extreme of Goa, and but generally the hotspots I would say are Candolim, Kalankut, and Arpora, Vagator. So these are all the hotspots where most of the expat communities are. But yeah, if you start going more away, as you start moving away from the beaches and more into the city life, that's where most of the locals live, which is also great. Most of them are friendly, I would say, most of them. Yeah, if you start living in decide to live in with the locals in a very traditional city, then yes, you have to be a little understanding of your neighbors, and partying and all that stuff is not very well looked at if you are living in a city where there are children and all that stuff. So if you decide to live there, you have to be considerate about the culture. Otherwise, you can just decide to live in the more tourist friendly places and expat friendly places.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that was a great breakdown. I really appreciate that. I know originally we were planning to talk about Phuket, but when you talk about Goa, my interest got piqued because it's a place I've been thinking about for a while. So I took us down the Goa rabbit hole. I think we'll wrap up there. My last question for you would be, for someone who wants to keep in touch with you, to follow your journey, are there any websites, social media handles that you want to plug?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, most of the places I go by the name Creative Nemo.
Okay, so, Creative Nemo.
Yeah, NEMO. So Creative Nemo is kind of my handle, and you can find me on multiple places. And yeah, my current company is Frizz. If you guys want to check out Frizz, if you are in Southeast Asia, it might come helpful to you. It's a neobank for freelancers. You can probably find me if you search for Frizz as well.
Awesome. Well, appreciate your time. Thanks for being on here.